Good evening, all. Good evening, all. I think good to start the session. Welcome you all to the IESL, the Institute of Engineers Sri Lanka. This program is arranged by Young Members section of IESL together with IEEE Power and Energy Society Sri Lanka chapter. So this will be our second webinar for this session 2023-2024. Today we have selected a very useful and important topic, navigating a success in research, which will be an inspiration for our undergraduates and young engineers in Sri Lanka. So for the benefit of all, let me give brief introduction about the session. So we will going to conduct this session within three sub sections. So there will be 4 resource persons for this entire webinar series: Dr. Danushka Udayanga, Dr. Damayanti Herath, Dr. Kamal Karnananda, and Dr. Akila Vijayatunga. So we'll be having 3 sessions. This will be the first one. The second one will be on 8th April, and the final one will be on the 9th April. So today, as the first session, we have invited key researcher in Sri Lanka, Dr. Danushka Udayanga, to conduct this session. Let me first appreciate the coordination given by IEEE Power and Energy Sector Sri Lanka chapter and its chairman, Dr. Akila Vijayatunga, for working with us very closely to arrange this program. So let me give a brief introduction to Dr. Danushka Udayanga and hand over the floor to him. Dr. Danushka Udayanga received his bachelor's degree in molecular biology and biotechnology from University of Peradeniya in 2009. He obtained his PhD in 2015 in Thailand, where he discovered his passion to work on molecular systematics. Danushka was a doctoral visiting student and a postdoctoral researcher at Mycology and Nematology Genetic Diversity and Biology Laboratory, USDA, ARA, Maryland. He is now serving as a senior lecturer at Department of Biosystems Technology, Faculty of Technology, University of Sri Jardhanpura. His major interest in teaching are biotechnology, mycology, and genomics. He is currently working on fungi in Sri Lanka and potential application in biotechnology and innovation. He is greatly honored to receive a Martin Baker Award, which is dedicated to 2 respected teachers of mycology, and he believes this award as an inspiration in his career life as a teacher and a researcher. Most importantly, he is among 2% of researchers in the world. So it is a great privilege for us to have him today, who is having a rigorous and vast background of research and publications. So without taking much time, let me hand over the floor to Dr. Danushka Udayanga.
Thank you very much, Dushant, for the introduction. And I would like to thank all the organizers, including IESL, young professionals, and IEEE Power and Energy chapter. So, yeah, I'm very excited to do this opening session on the very important topic, guiding and navigating the research, especially focused for undergraduates. So, Dushant, can you see my screen?
Yes, exactly. We can see you and we can hear you as well.
Okay, well. So today's topic is on Beyond the Basics, Innovative Approach to Scientific Writing. So I have tailored this topic specifically to young researchers in the engineering community. So I think if you are in very early career in research. This will be a kind of inspiring talk that you may hear. And also, if you are in a kind of middle age in your research career as an undergraduate researcher or maybe a early postgraduate researcher, this will be again very useful for you to start your first paper. Or if you have published a paper already, or one or two, this will be a catalyst to publish many more papers in future. So research papers can contribute a lot for our knowledge economy. So regardless of a professional engineer, having a research paper published in a reputed journal, a very good journal recognized by the scientific community, will be an added advantage for your professional career. So that is the thing I'm going to highlight in here. And also, I want to inspire everyone to publish more because it's very important for our career as well as for the future in the country. So this is my lineup today. We have 5 very basic topics, but as the title says, we are going to talk something beyond the basics. So we'll talk about how to select a research topic for your research and also literature search. Then once the research is done, there's a stage where we need to communicate this research to the scientific community. So we should know how to choose a communication avenue. So I'll talk about choosing a communication avenue. Then we discuss some of the tips for a better write-up, which increase the acceptance rate of your paper. But this information will be very useful for your thesis if you are in a thesis writing stage. Again, these tips going to be very important to shape up your thesis. So it's not just about a paper. These things can be applied to any standard type of scientific writing, a research paper, a report, wherever we have to follow a formal guidelines addressing the scientific community. So finally, I will talk a little bit on significance of a better write-up before we leap into the publication process in the next session organized by the same organizers. So I'll stop at this point, finally, then the next talk can be started from the publication process. Okay, let me start with the selection of research topic. That is the main focus of this talk. So choosing a topic is a kind of very important decision that the early career researcher should do. Sometimes you might tell, okay, we don't have chance to select a research topic by our own, right? We need to depend on the supervisor, right? Although it depends on the supervisor, sometimes you have the chance to talk to the supervisor, or maybe you have the chance to select the best supervisor that suits to your interest, if you are interested in a particular area. So choosing the topic that you are interested in, very important. Because if we are interested in, if we are passionate about it only, we can continue this research. That's why the research progress is more exciting if you care about your topic. For example, I have one area of research in life sciences. I'm working in biotechnology. Again, I have limited my area to the diversity of fungi. In that I do like molecular side, the molecular classification. So I will work on that side only, which my passionate area in research. Right? Similar to that, as early careers, you can choose your own topic. And also, when you choose a topic, make sure to narrow your topic to something manageable. Right? This is something like we are living in a large hole or large container. We want to see the light. If you want to see the light, you cannot shatter everything at once. You have to shatter a hole and see the light. Similarly, you have to narrow down your topic. Right? If you want to narrow down your topic, you have to read a lot. So you have to be a knowledgeable person in the field of specialization. to narrow down your topic, right? There are many ways to do this narrowing down. Either you can consult someone very experienced in research in order to get the most logical approach, right? For example, in the field of energy, if you are working on solar panels, right? If you want to focus on the materials on of them, maybe energy conversion, efficiency, right? You can select one path. Still, you can go through more and more literature and try to narrow down depending on the time you have. For any research work, a dedicated research work, regardless of undergraduates or postgraduates, there's a time limitation. We have to meet up the time limitations, then definitely we have to narrow down the topic in order to get a successful results. So once you have chosen the topic, you still have to work on it a lot. You have to ask, why did you choose the topic? This is a very important thing. You have to ask this from yourself, as well as you can talk to the group. You can talk with your mentors or supervisors. Then actually you have to ask, who are the information providers on this topic? There can be many professionals, many sources where the information provided for your topic. Then also you have to ask, what are the major questions of this topic, and where is the topic is important at local, national, or international level, and also uh, when is your topic is important. That is also matters. So all those questions should be asked from yourself, as well as you have to get the support from your group. That is where we need brainstorming sessions. So what we come into our mind when we talk about the brainstorming, it can be individual level. You can get down into a computer, or maybe you can go to a library and select some literature and start reading, and you can talk to the people, and you can get down all the information in the scratch format, right? Not in a very formal collection. Then you can start off thinking. Dushat, can you hear me? Check with someone else. Can someone confirm whether you could hear me or not?
Yes, Dr. Dhanushka, now we are audible. The presentation slide says do brainstorming together.
Okay, now can you hear me then?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, good. So, sorry about the interruption. So as I mentioned to you earlier, if we have a research group, it can be an undergraduate group, or it can be a very small group with an undergraduate, few postgraduates and your supervisor, right? So do brainstorming together as a group to identify the research gap. There are many things that humans can add to research rather than depending a lot on the literature, right? Although all the literature and the literature recorded in the internet or any other source consists of whatever made by the humans. When we come together and discuss, we can do some miraculous things, right? So keep in mind when you do the brainstorming, take down many people into your site, make a circle and do that. If you're still not very sure about the title, right, you can look for trends in science, technology, and engineering. So how we can actually find the trends? There are many ways of finding the trends in science, right? So I have listed down a few in here. You can see the look for like science newsletters. There are so many wonderful newsletters published in science and engineering, right? Specifically, if you want to search engineering newsletters, just go ahead and Google for engineering newsletters. Probably you need to specify your area. If you need to find specific newsletters, then again, you can specify the search terms and find a lot, right? More importantly, you have to subscribe them most of the time, right? There are a lot of national and international reports available. Those are very important to find the current topics, right? You can search for research reports from various engineering institutions. And if you have a chance, please attend conferences. Those can be a small undergraduate symposia, right? Can be international symposia hosted by your university. If you can become an organizer or co-organizer there, or you can just be a random visitor there just to look at the posters and some talks, right? Sometimes we don't understand everything at once, but be a random visitor in order to catch the current titles. And also, it's important to make a circle of interest groups, right? You can make a friends groups consisting of few people, and also join research media like research social media like ResearchGate, Twitter, LinkedIn, right? You might tell like something like Twitter may be more informal. No, it's not like that. There are many researchers So for undergraduates, you may not have a issue of getting the research funding, right? But still, you have to make sure to write the clear objectives at the beginning of your research, because that is the main place where your proposal will be graded, right? If you have clear objectives, clear achievable objectives, then your proposal will be a greater one, right? So you have to think about effective research design and clear objectives in your work. There can be many more reasons to make your project better. So we do not discuss them all, right? That can be the industrial important, national important, or maybe a lot of people are interested in your work for some other reasons, right? But still, you have to consider about the originality, significance, and the effective research design. Now again, there's a very common question asked by my students over the time during last 7 years when I was working with undergraduate students. Right? They come to me and ask like, how a thesis become a better one, right? If your thesis is finished on time, yeah, we can call it as a good thesis because it's finished, right? But is there something called a perfect thesis? Right? I really don't agree with the term of perfect thesis most of the time, because even if we think about our undergraduate time, right, we don't figure out undergraduate thesis as a perfect one. Even a PhD thesis are not going to be the perfect documents. But once the documents are published after a peer review, we can call it as a great work, right? So normally we can call a published thesis as a great thesis. This is the place where you have to think about getting publications in your undergraduate time and your early postgraduate time. So keep in mind, if you are worrying about a great thesis, if you are really worrying about a great thesis, you have to plan publishing the findings in your thesis. Can you see the screen now? Okay, good. You have to unmute or keep on. So if there's a technical issue, please let me know. I didn't see the chat box. Sorry about it. Okay, we'll continue from this point. So why publications are really matters? There are many important things about publications. So I have listed down a few for your knowledge. Usually publications advance the knowledge in a particular field, and also it support the progression of a professional career. For example, if we take uh, lecturers, right? It's really important for us to publish, to be up to date in the field. That is the same to the professional engineers in some cases, probably not for all, right? So you can practice that in the undergraduate time. If we take funding, there's a requirement of satisfying key performance indicators, what we call as KPI, then we have to publish for that. And also by publishing, you can become a known person in science, right? That is why when our name is Googled, a lot of documents are coming up, right? So you can become a popular person if you need to become like that. And nowadays, I have seen a lot of undergraduates, including many young engineers and technologists, they are interested in publishing in order to go for a better advanced degree. It can be a PhD or a master degree in a foreign country, because most of the time when the foreign researchers, then when they see an undergraduate who have published something in their undergraduate time, right, they have more chance to acquire to their research group, because they are looking for the dynamic people who can actually work and publish them, because it is a requirement in their postgraduate programs. And also, you can tune up your profession to extraordinary level if you really do not wish to go for higher studies. Still, you can go for extraordinary level in your profession by publishing, right? If you think about many of your supervisors in the universities in Sri Lanka who have published a lot in international journals, right? So they are very well recognized as professional and academic engineers, right? There are many more benefits, again, I should tell that. I didn't follow the discussion going on. Let me check. Right. So am I audible now? Okay. I hope I'm audible, right? Okay, good. Thanks, Dr. Akila. Yeah. So literature search is something very important and a must work when you start a research work. Right. So I'm not going to tell everything about literature search, but I will highlight a few things that probably you may have not heard earlier. Literature review is not just making a summary. This is very important. Now, when the literature review assignment is given to students at the early stage of research, what they usually do, they just copy paste some lines from many research papers related to the discipline and make the document. That is not the proper literature review, right? You need to be very logical and use the correct keywords. Again, I should tell, if you are not sure about what you are searching, please consult your supervisor or your seniors in order to get the right direction for your research. This is very important. Research is a very much social activity where you have to engage in, right? You have to use multiple database. This is again I highly recommend, right? When we ask to do a literature search, if you are just depending on the Google Scholar that we all do, right, that is not going to be a successful literature search at the end of the day, right? So please use multiple databases. There are many publisher based databases, right? There are many society based databases, right? So that you can search numerous ways depending on your discipline. Right? And also, do not hesitate to ask people. Do not be shy. You have to ask people and learn. And also, when you are searching, you have to be very flexible in your keywords. Right? So I have tested with many students whether they really understand what is a keyword is. Most of the time, my experience is they really don't understand which keywords to use uh, your to find something related to your research. So be very flexible and search, and also respect other disciplines and learn more from them if you have access to their expertise. So as I told you, the purpose of literature review is not just making a summary by taking a few things from here and there, right? It will lead you to identify the gaps in literature. So I will go these points clockwise, right? So if you start from the first point, you can follow me. So identify the gaps in research and also find other people working in your field, right? This is not what they are doing, right? You can search the people who are working on the same discipline as you. You might be thinking like why we need to worry about other people, right? As I told you, this is a social business. It is a global business as well as a social activity. So you need to know the people who are working in the same field by name. That is quite exciting. Right? In that way, you can search for their work, their laboratories, and their talks in YouTube, and you can access to many more information. And also identify major similar work, and also identify major methods, identify main ideas, conclusions, theories, and also provide a context for your own research, as well as show relationship between previous studies and theories, right? So if your supervisor asks you to write a review paper at the very beginning, right, that is going to be quite a challenging task for you, right? Sometimes I wouldn't recommend very younger researchers to complete a review paper, but definitely you have to do the literature review part that will be available in your proposal. If you want to publish a review article, that would be much better once you have some extent of your research work. Start your research work only, right? But still, we can do the review work, review papers at the beginning. There's no issues if the supervisors are demanding, right? That is something you should do. Okay. Now, when you encounter a lot of literature, especially in the web-based search, right, another problem coming up, there are a uh, lot of information available in literature related to your discipline. But we should know all this information is not the good information. Why am I telling that? Because internet is a very free platform. People can just log in and write a lot, right? Rather than depending on the formally published research paper, if you are getting information from other websites and the blogs and also some other kind of informal publications available internet, then I highly recommend you to follow these guidelines given in this CRAP test, right? So I call it as CRAP test. You can call it as CRAAP or CRAAP test, right? This is a very much popular and a standard test you can follow when you need to decide about the reliability of information you find in internet, right? So C, the first C stands for currency, right? It means when this article was published, right? Whether it's a current one or whether it's a up-to-date one. And also its relevance, whether it's relevant to your work, you have to think about it, right? And the third A implicate the authority, right? That's why I told you we should know who are the other people working on your field, right? So if there's a significant point you have found in the internet, you have to think about the author. If the author is expert in the field, you can actually believe it. And the fourth A implies the accuracy, right? You can think about, is this information supported by evidence, right? That is again common sense plus the references available. And also the last P indicate the purpose. So in that case, you have to think about, is the information designed to persuade or inform, or whether it is biased or not. So CRAP test is highly recommended for early researchers, right, who probably get misinformation from internet just because they are less experienced, right? So once your literature research review is done, you can go for your research. Once the research project is done, then the requirement of communication coming up, right? So the type of research articles you publish can be either research reports or maybe journal publications, right? Those are the things we concentrate in this particular session actually. And it can be just an innovation, invention, probably not a publication, right? Then it can be a patent and just the abstract presented in a conference or the conference papers like the IEEE papers. It can be short communications or magazine newsletter articles and can be just a presentation. So among these communication avenues, once you have done the research, you have to choose what you actually need to do, right? If you know what you need to do, only you have to follow the particular path, because these different kinds of publications may need different requirements in order to get them succeed. Sometimes the industries and the government institutional researchers may have different goals because they have secrets to keep and they have protocols to hide, right? In that case, if you work with the industry, respect them and keep those information confidentially rather than going for a publication, right? So that is an ethic the researchers should follow, right? You will hear about those things later in different sessions, right? Because we have 3 different sessions in the same program. So this precise communication avenue is vital for science to progress. We have to choose the correct communication avenue. If you talk to public, the general public, we can't go through the formal publication style, right? If you want to talk to the people, you have to write probably for the newsletters or newspapers. If you write something to public, right, they don't worry about much information on how you have conducted the research and what are the problems you have encountered and what are the historical information on this research. Instead, they just need the bottom line, and they might ask so what and some supporting details that might be enough for the public to understand your research, right? This is in case of writing newsletters or newspaper articles which address the general public. But scientists, they should do like the top-down approach. In that case, you have to write the background very carefully, and you have to provide supporting details as much as possible. And for the science to communicate accurately, you have to provide the results, conclusion, and discussion. So this is the place where we concentrate during this particular session. So the take-home message here is scientists often start papers by placing research in historical context, but the public wants to know the point clearly with some supporting information. So public really, they don't worry about much more details, right? Make sure if you talk about your research in public, probably in the media or for a newsletter, if you're writing for a newsletter or newspaper, right? Keep the most technical things hidden from them, because they really don't worry about the technical stuff, but they need the bottom line and a few supporting details, and just say what you have done, right? This is very important when you communicate to public. These are a few examples that I usually use to explain the students. So you can see the same research finding published in Construction and Building Materials. That is a formal journal published by Elsevier. So the topic there is thermal insulation enhancement of frammed earth using wood fly ash and calcium bentonite. So this might be well understood by the scientific community, or might be better understood by the civil engineering community. But you can see the same research is reported by the Science Daily. They just say like, okay, UBC Okanagan researchers look to the past to improve the construction sustainability. And people will read it because it's quite attractive title. And they further tell like revising ground earth building methods can prevent soil exploitation, right? So that make the public more interested to this this research work. So you can see the same research work can be communicated to public and the scientists in different ways. And this is another example that caught my eye very recently. You can see it is published in Indo Environments Journal. It's again a LCBR journal. It says, jingle bells, what are those smells? Indo VOC emissions from a live Christmas tree. They talk about some sort of volatile organic compounds emitted by the Christmas tree. But the bottom, you can see how they have communicated that to public with some attractive images. So in that, they say like live Christmas trees affect indoor air chemistry. NIST researchers find that's what they just need. If you go to the newsletter, you will read a lot. So I have given the link. If you are interested in, you can go to the NIST website and read if you are just interested in the indoor environments. Okay. Now that is the early part of my talk. Then we'll slowly move on to the part where we concentrate on writing more. So before start writing a paper, there's something you should ask yourself. This is very important. A lot of students has come to me and told that, okay, sir, I have done the research. I really need to publish it because I need a paper to apply for MPhil or PhD, right? But in some cases, it's very true. We can support them, we can publish them, but if the research work advanced enough to be reported, right? And also, it is very important to consult your supervisor, right? Once the research work is done, you will become a knowledgeable person where you can judge your work because you know literature and you have read a lot and you have deal with the title. Then actually you can decide whether your research is publishable or not to some point. But always make sure to consult your supervisor and talk to them, talk to your friends, talk to your peers, and discuss your results and make sure whether your research work is advanced enough to be published in a research journal, right? So this is not something coming into your mind, yet you have to make the correct judgment there. If you get the answer yes, okay, we can go for a scientific paper. Right? So as I told you earlier, right, I concentrate more on the writing part during this session. So if you want to write a research paper, again a term, a good scientific paper will come up. What actually a good scientific paper, right? I'm not going to stop and ask you because we have like a limited audience, but we'll try to meet our timeline too, right? So a good scientific paper usually present an accurate account of research investigation. This is very important. You cannot fabricate data, right? That should be very accurate information. And also, it should be clearly written and easily understood. We write papers for other people to communicate our research, right? Whatever you're writing should be very clear and easily understood, right? So sometimes you might see, if you see the Sunday newspapers, there are headlines people never understand until you read into depth, right? But in science, you can't do that. You have to be very clear. And also you have to follow the particular style of scientific discipline, right? If you are following the engineering journals, you have to look for that particular scientific discipline, right? And also your writing should be free from jargon and slang. You cannot use very informal term that we use in our subculture in the research writing. You have to be very formal. You have to be very straightforward when you write the scientific paper. There are many papers rejected by high impact journals or reputed journals due to bad title, sometimes writing style of the abstract, introduction, methods, results, and discussion. So if you want to write a winning paper, you need a good title for your paper. You have to write a good abstract, good introduction, methods, results, and discussion. During this very limited session, I will try to say what actually a good title and what makes abstract a good one, an introduction, methods, and results better ones in order to get a successful publication, right? Since I mentioned that we need to write very straightforward lines in research, this is one example that I could found. So I have chosen very simple sentence, right? Don't worry about the technical capacity of this sentence, right? So I have taken that randomly and written. So it says electronic technology is critical to improve the quality of communication engineering, right? Although I'm not a communication engineer or electronic engineer, I can understand what the author meant by that. So that is the need of science. But I tried to make the same sentence much more complicated in different ways. So you can see the second one seems okay, like in order to raise the caliber of communication engineering, electronic communication technology is essential. It might be understandable, but when you go further down, and you can see the language become more and more complicated. That is not something we expect in science, right? For example, in the last line, which is very complicated, right? It says like to ascend the excellence of communication engineering, the infusion of avant-garde electronic communication methodologies stands paramount. It might be totally correct grammatically, but I would say that is terrible in the sense of science, right? So be very simple in scientific writing. That is very important. That is just one example. We have no time to go many more examples. And specifically, I want to mention a good scientific paper should not contain any plagiarized materials. Now, we talk a lot about plagiarism. Even when it comes to your assignments, we instruct that do not plagiarize, do not copy the content directly from other authors, because it is a violation of intellectual property rights. So plagiarism is a serious offense and is serious charge against an author. Never write from others' research content in your research paper. And if it is detected at some point, definitely it's going to be detected, right? So the paper is going to be disqualified anyway. Right. So you can use these plagiarism detectors available from universities and various other societies, maybe research circles, right? You can use them to improve your content and to mask the plagiarism sometimes, right? So the take-home message here is use plagiarism detectors, proofreading tools, and co-authors to help to avoid plagiarism. Okay. So usually when it comes to a normal research paper, there's a very common structure. We call it as IMRAD structure. So since you have read a lot more scientific papers, probably, right, you know the structure here. So I'm not going to tell what are those beans one by one. Instead, I will tell when it comes to paper writing, what exactly the scientific journal expect to write in these sections, right? So we can discuss these sections in a lengthy manner, but today, since I'm suggesting some sort of an innovative way, some easy way to getting a winning paper, right, we will discuss only the important points, right? So when you want to start writing a paper, right, the very common question again students have asked me, what should I write first? This is very important. So you can start writing from the top, like title, abstract, keywords, maybe introduction. You might be thinking like following the same IMRAD structure to write. But as a practical researcher, I have seen that it's very hard or probably never been successful to follow IMRAD structure if you start writing in that way. In my research career, probably for like last 15 or 17 years, I followed this method of writing. So I don't know whether I have learned this from somewhere or whether I have heard from someone. Anyway, I'm practicing this without a problem and I'm passing the same to my students. If you want to write a research paper, once you have done, if you feel that your research is advanced enough to be reported, okay, then start writing from the methodology section, right? You need the methodology section fixed before you are giving a tentative title for the research paper you are going to do, right? So write the research methods first, then pick a tentative title. This title is not going to be the last title or whatever in the published mode, right? That can be very temporary title, but still you need a title to start off. Then, once you have written the methods, you must complete the results section based on the methods. So follow the same order that you have arranged in the methodology, then write the results as accurate as possible and do all the analytical parameters you have specified in the methods and try all the methods that available based on our resources and do the results section because that is going to be the core of the paper, right? Then you can freely complete the introduction and discussion. Once you have done all the parts like methods, discussion, a title, results are done, then you can leap into the abstract and fine tune the title more and more with keywords. So this is the order that I highly recommend, right? If you can try this once and if you fail, you can change your way of doing, right? That is my suggestion to do, right? So always try to write the abstract finally, right? That is the only way we can write a very good abstract. Now, when I'm talking about this research, a very common problem, a very common question asked by a lot of students is, can we use the AI tools to write, right? We can't do the hide and seek. We all know that there are a lot of generative AI tools where you can get the assistance for writing, right? So from my experience as an experienced researcher, we can get much more benefit from generative AI tools. But as early careers, right, you need to follow your own way first before you leap into the generative AI tools, because there are a lot of ethical issues going on, right? If you read this document I have just shown you in the side of the slide, and that is on generative AI in scholarly communication, you will find a lot more ethical issues of using the AI tools, right? But you should know that there are such tools, you can get the help, but first you have to improve yourself a lot, right? There's a creative writer in you. You should try to discover that creative writer within you. Then you can get the support of some sort of AI tool or maybe the experts around the world, right? And but if you are into the AI tools, then you have to know the policies, and there are a lot of limitations. Your work, your research article can be completely disqualified if you completely depend on AI tools in some cases. So I'm not going to warn you, but you should know the reality, right? Discuss with the people, discuss with the experts if you are into using some AI tools, right? This is something I should tell, because when we teach writing, the students can come up and say, okay, like the AI tools can do better than us. Yeah, I know, but you can feel it better if you are good at reading only, writing only, right? If you improve your skill, then you can judge whether the tools are sometimes better or not. Okay. Picking up a title for a research paper is really important, right? So why it is so important to choose a good title for a research paper? Because it is a label of the paper, right? Now, most of the time we will buy the books by looking at the cover, right? But in case of research articles, you don't have a cover, but there's a label, right? So that label is the title. So by looking at the label or the title, the readers may be attracted to your paper and start writing, right? So this label should contain as few words as possible. You can't write the paragraphs as titles. And also describe the content very accurately, right? That is very important, right? Only you know what is included in your research work, right? Then the best person to choose the title is you, right? Then describe the subject as specifically as possible within the limit of space, right? You have to keep in mind whatever the specialized area of your research work should be somehow emphasized in your title. And also make sure to avoid any abbreviations, because you can't abbreviate at the beginning. This is going to be the label and a lot of formulas. Probably, I don't know, for mathematical papers, they may need to mention the formula in the title. That can be exception. But you have to free from formulas, abbreviations, and a lot of jargon. And also, more importantly, do not promise more than is in your paper, right? So I'm reviewing like hundreds of papers and abstracts per year. So I have seen most of the time we encounter a lot more promise in the title, but there's nothing in the body actually. This is an error. So usually title report the subject of the research rather than the results, right? So you have to concentrate on that. So you need to include as many keywords as possible, right? So keywords are really important when the people are trying to search your paper through the indexing databases like Google Scholar, right? They search your paper by keywords. Then if you use many keywords in the title, those are going to come up definitely in a search term. And also make the most important words, keywords stand out, usually putting them first in the title, right? So once you have written a paper one day, if you have not written yet, right, go back to your title and go through these lines that I have told you and try to diagnose your title. So I have tried diagnosing titles a lot. So I have randomly picked up a few titles from one of my friends' profile, right? You can see those are, I could say those are very, very good, straightforward titles. So as an outside person, even I can tell what probably the research means, right? These are few very, very good titles. So I don't want to go one by one, but if you go through one by one, you can see the straightforward nature of those titles and also sometimes the catchy nature of the title. So I really want to show some bad titles to you, right? So there are bad titles probably published, right? But these titles are quite hypothetical ones that I could find. So you can see a bunch of tests we did with wires and stuff, right? You might think like people might not write in these things, but I have seen and people do like terrible things when they pick the titles, right? So why electricity is shockingly cool, right? That is not the formal way we can write a title in science, right? So if you look at the final one, just another paper on solar panel. We don't want to read just another paper, right? So that should be specified depending on the research done. And if you look at the fourth one, it says like an incomprehensible analysis of theoretical frameworks involving mathematical models too complex to explain, right? So nobody want to read something too complex to explain because science is all about making things simpler, right? So be careful about selecting a good title because it's very important to uh, popularize your paper at the end, actually. And when you write an introduction, right, there are things that you should try. This is again, I have experienced over past 7 years. Students are coming up with like very lengthy introduction. Sometimes there's nothing that should be included in the introduction, right? Always a good introduction is relatively short. Now, probably your conference papers or some engineering journals, they are requesting like 2 to 3 page papers. That's great because then definitely you should write a very short introduction. But there are certain journals where they have no limitations. Then people write like 2 to 3 page, uh, sometimes 4 to 5 page lengthy introductions, right? But usually a good introduction should be relatively short. And also in general, it should tell why the reader should find the paper of interest. This is very important. If you write a lengthy introduction to your research paper, but still if you do not tell why we read the paper, then we really don't need to read the paper because there's no inspiration, right? We have to spend some time to read the paper. And also you have to tell why the author carried out the research, right? And also you have to give some background to the reader needs to understand and judge the paper, right? Now you might be thinking whether researchers judge others' papers, right? Actually, we judge because there are points where we need to do the peer review, right? We send out the research papers to the experts in the field, right? Then they judge your paper. If your introduction itself is a mess, then we can definitely rate it as a bad paper, right? So make sure to include these important points in your introduction. That is very important to write a winning paper. And when it comes to materials and methods, the most recommended way is to go through a logical order that match to your discipline, right? So in case of biological science, I know that this chronological order might work. The chronological order in the sense, the order that you have conducted the results, conducted the research, right? But that may be not true for other disciplines, I don't know. But anyway, your materials and methods section should be arranged a logical order which is acceptable to the scientific community, right? Then you must provide all the information needed to allow a another research to judge your study, because as I told you in the introduction section, these papers are going to be peer reviewed, right? Then all the information should be provided to make sure that you have actually conducted this work, right? Rather than copying the information from somewhere else. And also, if another researcher want to repeat your experiment, right? Of course, people do, right? People do the same experiment and check our findings, right? So you have to provide all the information for other research to follow the same thing and get the same results. And also the methods followed should be described with as much precision and detail as necessary, right? There may be some points you need to hide if you are working on patents and some other intellectual property limitations. But still in science, if you just forget about that intellectual property details, right, you need to write all the details on your research in a research paper to get it accepted and published. Okay. Then when it comes to results section, this is the core of the paper. So in the first innovative part that I showed you, I told that the result is the core. Because of that, presenting the data in this results section usually should be very attractive and again easy to understand. Right? Usually when you line up the results, right, you need to follow the same order as you have given them in the objectives and methods. This is again something I have continuously advised the students, right? I think you got my point, right? When you have completed the method section, then when you come to results section, there's a issue in our head. There's a problem in our head, right? The order on how these results are arranged, right? This is a very simple point, but still young researchers sometimes do not get it correct. If you do the method section arrangement in the chronological order, right, according to the time you have conducted the research, then again the results section should be aligned to the things that you have actually written in the method, right? In that way, we can follow the results compared to the methodology section, right? So the peer reviewers can read the method section, then they can find the corresponding information in the results section too, right? So this is a kind of thumb rule to follow when you write research papers. There can be rare exceptions, right? So I'm just telling you some easy ways of arranging this, right? Keep in mind, right? If your supervisors suggest different ways, that is totally acceptable because they are knowledgeable people on their field. So these well-presented results usually are simply and clearly stated, right? We don't need much more details in the results. If the results section stand alone without the discussion part, right, don't cite anything in the results section. But if you are writing results and discussion together, then there are some points where you need to cite the papers. And also report representative data rather than endlessly repetitive data. If you have a lot of numbers coming up, depending on your analysis or in your data collection, then only the representative data matters, right? No need to add all the repetitive data because we are not looking at each and every numbers. If the numbers are like hundreds and thousands, then you need the analytical representation in the results. And also reduce the large masses of data to the means, right? That is very simple and common sense. And you need to go through the simple statistical analysis as required, right? Sometimes if you need like specific statistical analysis, then make sure to provide all those information as annexures, but the graphical representations and the reduced information should be well presented in the results section. So this is again something I need to highlight when you write results. You need to refer the text when you line up the results with graphs and figures. Right? This is again something usually mistaken by young researchers. Right? If you are putting a table, that should be mentioned in the text before you are putting the table. Right? So you have to refer that in the text. So include only the tables, figures, and graphs that are necessary. Right? You may have generated hundreds of figures and maybe 10, 20 tables, but if they are not really necessary to your point, then you can keep them as supplementary and present only the limited number of graphs and tables. And also make sure to select clear and worth reproducing information into the results section. So graphics are really important in our research work. So nowadays, most of the research papers become more and more popular and catchy due to better graphics. Right? If you go through the graphical abstracts or sometimes better graphics available in research papers, getting much more attraction. Sometimes there's a tend to get more citations if you are looking for the citations, right? So know what sort of graphics you are doing. They can be either raster, bitmap graphic formats, or maybe vector graphics you have generated, right? Then be mindful about their quality. That is very important, right? So usually I have seen when the researchers become experienced or professional graphical people, right? They do wonders when they are presenting results section. So if you are into research, if you are passionate about research, please follow some sort of graphical software where you can do few things at least, right? So the take-home message here is better graphics makes your paper remarkably visible, widening the audience and get them more and more citations. Right? There are plenty of examples where the people have done wonderful graphics. Because of that, the readers tend to read your paper, right? Although it's probably not the best one sometimes. Right? That can happen in science too. And also, there are few things you should avoid. As I told you earlier, repetition of data and also unnecessary negative data. If you have a lot of negative data and a lot of failures, then you really don't need to mention them. And you can discuss them in a different way, but you don't have to show the zeros again and again. And also unnecessary figures and graphs, unnecessary wordings and phrase, and also low quality images. This is very important. You may have done a big effort to take a picture, but if the picture is not clear, it's again useless to appear in a research article. Right? People don't want to see something very dark like this. Right? I have shown one example here. Right? If you are putting a image, that should be high quality. Right? So think about it. Okay. And when it comes to discussion, that is again a very important section, right? For early career researchers, so I have seen many times students probably they are blank about what should be actually written in the discussion. And if you are reporting experiments you have done in laboratories, you may have written like hundreds of discussions for your experiments. That's very true. That's a kind of practice to write a good discussion. But still, even as an experienced researcher, I take discussion as one of the most challenging part of the paper. So if the students are telling this, I would agree with them, right? Because you have to pull everything there on your research and you should show the significance of your work in detail in the discussion section. So if a reader reads the complete discussion section, right, they should not end up of saying, so what? Right? You know what I mean, right? When if the discussion is complete and the discussion is nicely done, although it is challenging, readers wouldn't ask at the end what you have done, right? Because it's clearly explained there in the discussion. So you have to bring up your discussion to that level if you want to write a winning research article. Right? So think about it, and these are few things we can include in a good discussion. You have to relate the results to the questions that were set out in the introduction. I don't repeat any lines in the introduction or abstract in the discussion again. Right? That is again useless. Instead, right, relate your results to the research questions that you have addressed. Then show how the results and interpretations agree. This is very important. Only you know how these results and interpretations agree or disagree. And also you can compare this with latest published research work. That is very important. Don't go back to the first paper on the particular field and cite it in order to discuss your work. Instead, go to the latest research articles and latest citations and compare those results with whatever you get and discuss very clearly. And always indicate the significance of your results rather than emphasizing the results available in literature done by others. And also, if you have enough space to write the discussion more, you can suggest the future research, and also you can predict whatever based on your results. Right? So this is what I can suggest for you to get a winning discussion again, right? So discussion is again a part that peer reviewers look into, right? You cannot just write something in these sections. That is what I want to highlight. More importantly, abstract is coming up on top of any research article. Now, most of the time when you do literature search, you also may have experience, you just probably look at the title and the abstract. Right? That is completely fine, right? Depending on the time you have or based on the reason. Right? But when you write an abstract, there are few things that you should take into your head. Now, when we talk about abstract, the normal thing going into the head of especially the young researchers, they might think like this is just a summary. We can copy few lines from introduction, results, materials and methods, and then that is going to be abstract. No, that is not the abstract. So abstract should be very definitive. It should define your paper. It should straightforward tell what is actually this research is all about, rather than telling a lot of information, right? So here I have mentioned the abstract should be definitive rather than descriptive. You don't need to provide all the details, but it should be definitive. It should give the facts rather than say the paper is about something. But most of the time, if I read like hundreds of abstracts, right, I will find like maybe 80% of abstracts just say like something about research. It is not what we really expect from a good abstract. If you want to write a good abstract, this is a kind of skill you need to practice. You can't probably write a good abstract by writing like one or two abstract within one night. It takes time. You need to read a lot and improve these skills, right? You need to give facts rather than say the paper is about something. It should be very straightforward and definitive, right? So a good abstract is a short, usually bound with the number of words. Now you may have seen in the journals, they say like 200 words, or maybe the number of characters are given in some cases. In that case, you have to count the character number, right? In my experience, like most of the time, abstracts are going to be like 200 to 350 words, or little more, sometimes maybe 400 words, usually in one paragraph, right? Sometimes, rarely, journals recommend like 2 paragraphs, but most of the time, abstracts are going to be 1 paragraph. And more importantly, it should stand on its own. When you read the abstract, although you do not read the rest of the paper, there should be some sort of definitive facts you will get into your head. Right? That is what I call as underlined in here, stand on its own. And also it should complete itself. It may be published in a separate secondary source. That's why a lot of conferences ask for the abstract, because it is complete itself. Researchers can communicate their work in a definitive way rather than just a summary, right, based on abstract writing. So what should be actually written in abstract? Now, abstract is limited to like 250 to 300 words. So within that, if you want to write the facts, it's better we follow some sort of a guideline to write a good abstract. There are so many different guidelines available in internet. So I have found one just guideline where I can show you very clearly. Right. So in this particular guideline, it says you have to include context, that is the sufficient background to understand the question. That can be just one sentence out of that 350 words, but you have to tell the sufficient background within the abstract. Then if you have a clear hypothesis or the purpose or its extent, you can specify that. Then methods. Now you might be thinking my methodology is like 2-page or 3-page long. How can I write this within the abstract? Right? That skill should be developed, right? You can still tell your methods in like 1 or 2 lines, right? And also you have to summarize the findings probably in 1 or 2 lines, and you have to specify the significance, because most of the time people are going to read your abstract only. Then if we cannot find the significance in your abstract, I can see it as a failure actually, right? So if you have failures in past rejecting the abstract, so receiving like many comments to your abstract, or if you have never written an abstract, right? So think about the guidelines I have given in here, right? You will definitely improve that skill. So this is the format available for that particular content I have given. So you can see this particular hypothetical research study on human trafficking, the relationship between government efforts and survival punishment. Right? So they have specified the context in yellow color and light blue color, the purpose line. Then the methods, it's probably in 2 lines. Then findings specified in purple color, probably in 1 line or 2 lines, and the significance. Now this is quite a nice abstract which is standing alone, and all the facts are included rather than just a summary. Okay? So this is a very good way of practicing the abstract. I just tried to pull up few abstracts and analyze them to find these sectors that I have specified. For example, to find the context, purpose, method, finding, and significance in 1 or 2 abstracts. You can see these particular abstracts available in a different source, right? So it actually has a context line, some sort of a background, and I can't see the method applied actually in this particular case. And you can see they provide some sort of significance line at the last, but still I don't see it as a very successful abstract, but still it contains some information, right? So this is not probably the abstract we expect from a skilled person, right? So you want to practice this if you are into science and more research in future. And I have tried to analyze another abstract, which is a very short one, but although it's very short, I can see the background, method, and the results and the significance. So I should say, although it is a very small abstract, right? The author have managed to include everything in there. So this is about something, the reliability of electronic transmission systems. But unfortunately, they have not specified the significance there. Right? So it's always better to think about these guidelines that I have mentioned to you when you write a good abstract, if you want to get an abstract accepted or maybe a paper accepted at the end, right? So a bad abstract may cause some problem, bad impression to the peer reviewers, right? Then once your abstract is ready, if you want to publish a research paper, there's a point where you need to specify some keywords. So what are the keywords? So keywords usually contain some key terms by which the paper should be indexed. Now, indexing is a very important thing about literature, right? So that is the place where they arrange the research papers, they categorize research papers. So in past, uh, when people use a lot of libraries, they had the indexing methods depending on the subject and keywords. But nowadays, since we have a lot of electronic information available in internet, and these key terms are very important. When you select a keyword, most of the time I have seen the young researchers, they tend to select a few words available in the title. Now think about it, right? If you have ever submitted the abstract, right, they have asked probably a few keywords to specify. Then what people do, they just pull up a few words from the title and list it as keywords. This is again very useless because indexing databases, usually they are going to catch all the words available in the title as key terms. So if you want to widen your audience, if you want other people to read more, right, if you want to catch your paper by other people a lot, then you have to widen your scope and put some different keywords into the keyword section, right? So as I have specified here, keywords together with title and abstract can increase the visibility of your paper and high chance of retrieval by the indexing databases so that a lot of people will read your paper. Right? That's why the keywords are really matters. So I can provide a few tips when you select keywords, right? So if you have a difficulty of selecting some good keywords, right, write these things down and try to follow them. So you can include the techniques or the methods you have used. For example, if you have used some sort of uh, technique like electron micrography or some sort of technique like FTIR, or if you have used any other technique, you can specify that technique as a keyword. That is a really good keyword where people you find your paper. And also focus the main topic of your research, right? So usually we do research under a given specific title, but there can be some running header, a big header where you can specify the subject of your research. So you can use that term in the keywords. And also usually avoid the keywords that are only one word because you have the chance to increase the audience. So I highly recommend you to use like 2-word kind of keywords that is going to be more retrievable by the databases. And also avoid overlapping keywords in your title. Right? It is not the wrong thing to write the same thing in the title in the keywords, right? This is the very common mistake I have seen in many papers that I have reviewed. But somehow, if you can omit the words present in the title and add some more keywords into the keyword list, then it can increase the visibility of your paper, right? That is the reason I'm telling, avoid overlapping keywords with your title. And also follow the journal guidelines. All these journals, they give certain guidelines to list down the keywords and also perform the keyword search before you submit the paper. This is very important. If you have chosen like 3 to 4 keywords, you can do the search in Google Scholar or any other database and try to find whether similar papers are coming up by searching these same keywords. Right? If the similar papers are coming up, I would say your keyword selection is good. Right? So make sure to perform keyword search, right? Even you can do that for your thesis too. Then when it comes to citations, it's again a different world. So I'm not going to talk a lot about citations and references during this session, right? Somebody will do about it a lot in a different session, right? So manage referencing with an appropriate tool like Mendeley, EndNote, or RefWork, right? It might be a good choice, but manual editing of the references also something should be practiced by early carriers, right? Although you depend on a database like a tool like Mendeley or EndNote, right? Make sure that your reference list is accurate, because sometimes these databases they have some sort of errors. I don't know the reason how these errors are coming up, but somehow it's better for you to go through manually by looking at one by one in your reference list and try to correct it, right? So many referencing databases may some sort of difficulties, but if you are really a pro on that, if you are really good on that, right, I would say it's okay to follow the referencing tool, right? Then once the paper is done, a proofreading step is there. So what is proofreading? I usually recommend for the people when they have written a research paper, you can keep the research paper somewhere for a certain period of time in a folder without looking at it for 1 week or 2 weeks. Then start reading it again by yourself. That is a kind of a proofreading done by yourself. Right? You can write the research paper completely, then put it aside for like 1 or 2 weeks, forget about it, and have some fun, have some coffee, and go outside, probably go on a trip, and come back and look at the research paper in the fresh manner again, right? You can do your own proofreading. It will enhance the accuracy, and also it can check the adherence to the standards, and you can do minor editing to mask the plagiarism if you have actually mistakenly copied something from somewhere, right? So it will improve the flow and organization, maintain the clarity and coherence, and also enhance the credibility of your writing. So there are many proofreading tools available. If you take Grammarly or Ginger, right, you can try them out. So I'm not very experienced person because I have just started using these tools very recently. But myself, I'm doing my own proofreading a lot because I have the experience of doing a lot of papers. Then I can do it by myself. But definitely these tools will help you right nowadays. But as I told you earlier, you have to practice your own writing style before you leap onto the technology. Now, when you write a research paper, you have to know the fate of this research article, right? So it is important to know the publication process, right? During the next session of this particular program, right, you will hear more about the publication process, but I just want to highlight you, once you have written the manuscript, then usually you can uh, get several proofreading steps done by your supervisors and the co-authors. Then it will be submitted to a journal, a selected journal, right? You will hear a lot more again about selection of a journal later on, and it can be either rejected or accepted. But at this stage, to prevent it rejection from a journal, it is very important to follow the writing tips that I have mentioned. Because if you look at the reasons for rejection of papers, immediate rejection of a research paper from a reputed journal can be just due to probably not the right journal, but there are many points where you may have done the wrong writing, or maybe the bad writing, language issues, maybe low quality write-up, plagiarism, sometimes out of the journal aim and scope, right? So other than that, there can be other reasons like ethical issues, missing components, or probably the long and bulky papers without a clear point. Sometimes people do very lengthy papers, right, without a clear point. Then the journals do not entertain that kind of papers because peer reviewers usually do not agree to review that kind of bulky ones. But there are certain disciplines where they publish like book-like papers, rarely maybe 100 to 100 pages. Right? But I don't think in engineering, most of the time you publish very short and straightforward papers. If there are biased or flawed statements in science, then that can be a reason for rejection. So rejection of a paper from one journal is actually not a failure, right? That is why you have to practice writing and you have to know a lot about these publication procedures, right? So if you fail from publishing an article from the first time, right, do not be discouraged, right? So this failure, this rejection is actually a part of the publication process. So it's pretty normal. It's very normal to get a paper rejected. So you don't have to take it very personal and get upset if you have a paper rejected, right? You have to keep on working. So that is the very normal nature in science. Right? But you can improve the acceptance rate by a well-written title, well-written content and abstract, high quality images, a clear message specified in introduction and discussion, and you have to follow the guidelines in the journals, and also you have to think about issue framing, right? So issue framing is a point where you can follow a strategic way of presenting the problem, and also think about the technical and grammatical accuracy. That's the place where you need the proofreading either manually or using the proofreading tools, right? This is how we can improve the acceptance rate. So here I have given a take home again. Make sure your manuscript shows that you are up to date, right? You need to use the most recent citations in your research article, and also on current developments in your discipline, and understand the complexity of problem you are trying to solve, right? That's why we need to learn a lot during the research process. Right? From that, I'm moving to most of the end part of my talk, right? So I should say failures are very normal in science if you get a rejection, right? Thomas Alva Edison once have told, like, I have not failed, but I have found not thousand ways to not make a light bulb, right? So in research papers also, if you have failures in writing, don't worry about it. You are learning different ways of writing. That's what I want to say. And also doing research is a tough job. Don't take it easy. It's a very systematic job. And you can search anything in the internet right away using your phone or your computer, right? As much as you do searching in internet, you can't do research, right? So research is a very, very dedicated job and very systematic job where you need to follow a lot more standards set by the global scientific community. Right? So it takes time for you to get a good research article and to become a good writer, right? So you might be a very good engineering profession one day, but sometimes if you do not want to do research, probably you are going away from the research, then it doesn't matter. But if you want to do research, right, you will become more practical profession. That's true for any profession in the world. Right? So as a teacher, I have experienced that in my classroom. Right, just because I'm doing research, I can be up to date, and I can take the best thing to my students. That's very true for any other profession for sure. Okay. Being said that, I wish you good luck to all the publication efforts by the young researchers who have joined today, right? So don't fear to leap into research, And if you're passionate about it, there are plenty of people in the world to help you, right? So don't give up. And if you have published one paper, think about the second one. If you have think about the second one, then think about many papers, right? That will be definitely an advantage to your career, as well as it will be uh, an advantage for our knowledge economy in the country, as well as it will provide your name. I mean, it will keep your name uh, top in the world. So again, I wish you good luck with your publication efforts. Tushant, are you here, or I can take up few questions if you have anything to get clarified? You can put the questions in chat box. Otherwise, you can raise hand and ask. No problem.
Yes, sure, Dr. Dhanushka, we can allocate time for a couple of questions as well.
Yeah, but if you do not have questions, I mean, we can wrap up the session. Yeah, I can make my contacts available with Dushant if anyone need any sort of help. So I'm affiliated to University of Sri as mentioned. So you can contact either Dr. Dushant or Dr. Akila here as the organizers. Otherwise, you can take me directly. Okay, there's something in the chat box. Is there any possibility to do a research without a supervisor? Quite interesting question. Right, depending on the state where you work, but I would say yes, right? You can do a research without a supervisor. There are people, freelancers who are doing research without a supervisor. Yeah, it is possible, but all the time, right? There are incidences where you need to follow certain guidelines if you are not experienced researcher, right? The best thing is to follow the guidelines from a supervisor and get into the research world. But if you are an experienced person, definitely you can do some research without a supervisor. Okay, it's quite interesting question. Yeah. Okay. I am still a bachelor student. It was a great pleasure to attend today's meeting. Oh, thank you for compliment, Nishad. Yeah. Yeah, for bachelor students, right, you don't have to try to do research by your own, right? So I'm pretty sure there are plenty of good researchers in your university, and there are lecturers. You can go and talk to them, and they will guide you to do some sort of research work depending on the time you have, although you are probably in first, second, third years. You don't have to wait until the final year, right? There are few students who have met me very early stage in research and discussed about research, and even some people try to publish something during like first or second years by doing small research work. So if you are really interested in, please go ahead and talk to a lecturer, right? They will respond you definitely if you are a bachelor student. Okay, if there are no more questions, Dushant, shall we wrap up? What do you think?
Okay, Dr. Dhanushka. So this is a live recording that we did today in ISL Mysore Studio. So this recording will be published in our ISL official YouTube channel as well. So the audience can refer that video as well for future proceedings. And we are having Dr. Akila Vijayatung as well in our audience. So she was one of a coordinator who arranged this program with us, the chairman of IEEE Power and Energy Sector Sri Lanka chapter. So Akila, do you have any comment?
Dr. Akila, probably she was traveling, so I don't think she could talk.
Sure.
But it's okay, yeah.
Sure. In that case, Dr. Danushka, thank you very much. You have done a wonderful presentation with a lot of information, and it was very comprehensive, detailed one, which will be definitely support for our membership. And we will keep this contact with you in future as well for the membership inquiries. And I will not hesitate to share your details and other information which our membership will require in future as well. So on behalf of Electrical, Electronic, Telecommunication Sectional Committee, as well as the young member section of ISL, I would like to thank you for your valuable time allocating for us to share your knowledge, experience. We know that you are very experienced, and you have engaged with a lot of research, and there are a lot of things from your side to be shared with us. So thank you very much for allocating this time for us. And I should thank to Dr. Akila Vijayatung as well for supporting us to arrange this program on behalf of ISL and the IEEE Power and Energy Section Committee. The audience will meet on April 8th from our second session in the same topic. Dr. Damayanti Herath will be take the session. So until that time, I would like to say goodbye, good night to all of you. Thank you very much, especially our CEO, Engineer Neil Abesekar, who supported us to arrange this program in ISL, and all the supporting staff who work hard with us to arrange these programs to give away knowledge to our membership. So thank you very much once again, everyone. Thank you very much, Dr. Danushka, again, for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. So thank you very much, everyone, joining today. So goodbye. Have a good night.
Thank you very much, Dushyant, and all the participants. Okay. Have a very good night.